Welcome back to another Flash video tutorial. Today we're going to get started by creating a new ActionScript 3.0 document. This video is going to cover the basics of if statements. So, if you don't know what if statements are, well, you're going to learn today. So I'm going to go ahead and file save as just to start. I'm going to save this as intro to if statements video and save. I already had one that existed because I'm working ahead of time to provide for you wonderful students. I'm going to go ahead and get started by clicking on Layer 1, Frame 1, tapping F9 to bring up my Actions window. And let's go ahead and put a multi-line comment at the top here. So I'm going to put / asterisk, and then asterisk /. And so we have open and close our multi-line comment. And this is going to be about, well, intro to if statements. I recommend that you follow along exactly as you see here. I'm going to put a couple of dashed lines for beauty's sake. And so we're going over intro to if statements. There are two parts to if statements. So let's write that out. Two parts. Oops. The first part is the conditional, and that will either be true or false. And the second part is are the statements. And the statements will run if the conditional is true. And I'll explain that in just a second. So how do we create an if statement? Well, the syntax, or what an if statement should look like, is you write out if, open parentheses, put in your conditional, oops, and then put a opening curly bracket. That's, you hold shift and that's right almost above your enter key. And then you write your statements and end them with the semicolon, and then you close your if statement with another curly bracket. So we have if, and then open parentheses, write our conditional, close parentheses, open curly brackets, write your statements, and then close your curly brackets. And if you noticed, these lines of code don't end in a semicolon, and I'll explain that later. But for now, we have two parts, and we know how to create an if statement. So let's go ahead and get started. The main, how do I explain it? The main way that if statements function, or how the conditional part of the if statements function, is by using comparison operators. So we need something to be either true or false to work. And the first one I'm going to show you is the equal to operator. So to get started, I'm going to go ahead and create two variables and create variable A, that's an integer, set it equal to 1, and create variable B, that is an integer, and set it equal to 1. So we can get started. Oops, and I'm just saving so that I don't accidentally lose anything. So I'm going to get started. We have our two variables, and I'm going to go ahead and put a comment saying equal to. I'll say equal to operator. Let's do that. New line, and now we can start writing out our if statement. So I'm going to type out the word if, and you can see that's purple, open parentheses. I'm going to say if A is equal to B, close parentheses. And now this equal to operator is different from the double equal sign. It's different than single equal sign. Single equal sign is to assign a value, versus the double equals is just going to say whether or not something is true. So let's finish out the rest of our if statement. Put an opening curly brackets, put some space. If you tap enter, Flash will go ahead and actually end or close your curly bracket automatically. Usually, not always, but usually. So basically what this is saying, this is going to say if A is equal to B, then we're going to do anything in between these two curly brackets. So I'm going to type out trace A is equal to B, save, and I'm going to run my program. So A is 1, B is 1, and A is equal to B. Well, what if A doesn't equal B, right? Let's change B to 2. Save. Control Enter to run my program. And we do a little dance while it decides to destroy itself. And there's nothing in our output now because, well, A isn't equal to B, so it goes, hey, A isn't equal to B, that's false, so don't do any of our statements inside. So, moving on. Let's change A and B back to 1 so that way it actually shows something. Let's go ahead and do some other conditional operators. So the next one is not equal to, so not equal to operator. Well, let's write this out. So if, I'll just use regular numbers for now. So say if 1 is not equals to, is not equal to 0, then we'll trace something out. So let's say trace 1 is not equal to 0. Oops. Close with the semicolon. And what this is doing, the way this works is just an exclamation point, then an equal sign. So it's saying if this value is not equal to this value, then write out 1 is not equal to 0. So I just saved that, and my program's going a little slow today, so I'm sorry. So I'm going to Control Enter to run. 1 is not equal to 0. So it should trace out 1 is not equal to 0. And remember we set A equal to B, so that's tracing out as well. The next one we're going to write out is greater than. So we have greater than operator. And say if 1 is greater than 0, then we're going to trace out 1 is greater than 0. Control Enter to run. Do a little dance. And 1 is greater than 0. Cool. The next one is less than. Less than operator. And if, let's see, 0 is less than 1, open curly brackets, trace 0 is less than 1. Save. Oh, it's going so slow. I apologize. Yeah, that's about all I can do. So be patient. Don't fall asleep. Don't fall asleep. Don't fall asleep as the program goes. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. I sound like an idiot. You can't see me. Ha. Okay, so A is equal to B. 1 is not equal to 0. 1 is greater than 0. 0 is less than 1. Cool. So far, so good. There are only 2 more. Oops, sorry about that. There are only 2 more left. So there is greater than or equal to, which is if, say, 1 is greater than or equal to 1, then trace 1 is greater than or equal to 1. And, well, basically what that does is, and the greater than has to go before the equal sign. So it says if 1 is greater than or equal to 1, we'll trace this out. I think that makes sense. I'm not going to write that out for you just yet. So the next one we have is less than or equal to. There's a if, let's say 0 is less than or equal to 1, then we'll write out trace. Oops. Gotta make sure your capitalization is correct. So I'm going to trace out 0 is less than or equal to 1. Save. Make sure I closed my curly brackets. I'm going to run it now. And now we have 1 is greater than or equal to 1, and 0 is less than or equal to 1. So those are your, I believe, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 options for using if statements. They can get a little more, how do you say, complicated in the future. I'll show you how to do that. But for now, those are the basics. Play around with them. Make sure you understand how they work. And let me actually show you one more thing, right? So if you were to just trace out 1 equals 1, right? Because it's not text, it's code. This is just going to write out the value true because 1 is equal to 1. So I'm going to control enter to run that. So 1 is equal to 1, so that's true. But if I did 1 is equal to 0, dun, 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 go, it says false. So when you do these conditional operators, they're going to turn into either true or false. They're going to go into your if statement, get evaluated. If they're true, everything within your curly brackets is going to be run. And if they're false, it's just going to move on. And I'll explain a couple more parts about if statements in the next video. So thanks for watching.